Hello and welcome to the Temple of Nuit Capricorn New Moon reading. My name is Eva Wildheart and I come to you from Jojo, Rotorua Country in Central Highlands, Victoria, Australia, in the Southern Hemisphere. All these times will be Eastern Daylight Savings Time, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So adjust if you were listening to this somewhere else, part of Australia or throughout the world, just adjust these timings to your time zone. Before we begin, I'm going to take you through an invocation. This is an invocation that I do before every reading. And just so you can feel it, you can feel the channeling of the goddess Nuit, who I work with in these readings and all my astro work, and really sit in to what she is calling us to do. So I invite you to close your eyes if you are feeling called to, and just take in this deep breath. And at this time of the festive season and the busyness, and here in the Southern Hemisphere, it's high summer, just allowing this time to come back into your bodies and taking another deep breath again. Rolling your shoulders up and back and out, feeling your roots going from your base into the ground below you. Feeling your branches from above, from your crown, stretching out past the clouds and into the cosmos. And just open up your chest a little bit more and ready to receive all that you need to hear, and trusting what is needed to be heard, what is needed to be said will be heard, and what it is being heard is needed to be said, and trusting that as we are feeling deeply rooted and wide branch, connecting to the stars above, but also to the earth below, and allowing the two energies to meet within our heart space. And as we sit here in the middle, in the void, in the dark moon, I light this candle that will burn while we journey through the realms of the cosmos. And I light this candle as we call on the goddess Nuit, as we spiral from the center of our being, the void space within our very cells and our earthly bodies. We open up to your ever-expanding portal of galactic wisdom, knowledge, and consciousness. We call for full illumination of our unique universal map, our imprint of time and space. We call the stars, the planets, and all the spaces in between to speak through us and to us with crystalline clarity. May this transmission of galactic proportions shift us through the veils, expanding us beyond the realms of infinite creation. May we feel safe and held as we transmit this cosmic coding through our earthly vessels in service to the greater good of all beings, as we deeply remember that we are galactic citizens, ever-evolving conduits of the cosmic matrix, fulfilling our soul's mission and our beloved Earth at this time. And so it is, and blessed be. Blessed be out there in this dark moon Capricorn portal, the first dark moon, new moon in Capricorn without Pluto since 2008. Epic times. What does Capricorn look like in the areas of your chart? What does Capricorn areas of your chart look like without Pluto in it, the Lord of the Underworld? What does it look like now? It's a big transition. We're in big, big times. We've had some massive solar flares, X-class solar flare, just flying off and hitting the earth, calling us to open up to even more light, to allow that plasmic solar energy to lift us, to elevate us, to open us up. But with that, the body can feel a bit sort of rattled and disjointed and headaches and not feeling well. And, and also coming after all the festive season, it's crazy, crazy times. I hope you all got through that sort of, that festive summer solstice, Christian Christmas, and the Hanukkah, all that festive season with that Pluto and Jupiter square, the second one that we had on Christmas Day on the 25th of December. That might have been a bit rough for some people. I know that it was an emotional roller coaster for me. Yes, the horses, I can hear the horses going. It's so interesting. This is the time. This is the time to really look at what needs to be let go. What can't we take with us into this new timeline? What are we calling in what's coming for us. Where is your focus pointing to? Is it on the old that is dying, or is it on the new coming in? And I say this because this is very much part of my experience too, of like turning my attention, even though it's hard and hurtful, to turn away and look at what it is that is going to counteract all the Pluto Capricorn themes that have been playing out in my personal life and probably yours since 2008. So this is what this Capricorn new moon is all about. Before I go on, I just wanted to mention a couple of my offerings that are on the table at the moment. First of all, my books are open now for one-on-one space holding and counselling support. That's all done on Zoom. Also, astro readings. You can do a 6-month reading with a report, or we can just do a general natal reading, which is pretty epic. Had some amazing feedback from that, and really supporting people as we move to help them understand what's going on in their lives. Also, the Temple of Nuit Patreon, the Temple of Nuit study group, which is epic. So amazing. And I'm just going to pause this because I'm going to hear my son crying. Just a sec. Now that that's all sorted. Other offerings, we've got I think it's the 13th round of Invoking Inanna. This is very, very exciting. Invoking Inanna journey to the underworld has taken big leaps and strides to meeting the energies of this, I don't know, a galactic shifting of consciousness. It's a very epic journey of 5 months, mostly done online. And we follow the myth of Inanna, letting go of all that no longer serves, sitting in the void space, dreaming in the new versions of who we are for our families and our communities and the earth itself. And then we reclaim, we embody, we step into the light, up and up for 7 weeks. It's a very, very big journey, awesome journey. We're journeying with Dragonfly as our paranormal for this round. It starts at early February. If you're feeling the call to really work some deep bone work, considering we're in Capricorn, new moon, dark moon, this is a great time to shed all that no longer serves, not just for you, but for your ancestors, for your families, for the earth, for the collective, because we work with collective energies as well as personal, individual energies. So it's really a service. We're showing up in service to the collective energies of ascension. That, as I said, that begins at the start of February, and that co-teaching with the beautiful Ali Riverstar. Let me know if you're interested in coming to that, because we journey with a group and it's very powerful. It's so powerful. Every time we do it, it just takes another level. Also opening up at the start of the year, we're very, very excited. Natasha Colchester and I, some of you may know Natasha, her and I have worked together on many projects. Red Thread Healing and Drum Making is one of them. We're opening up a school, the School of Healing and Magical Arts. We're going to be starting a new podcast. Very, very exciting for that. We'll be running courses, mostly online at this point. Stay tuned for that one. And also the Sentient Sky Podcast with the magical Rebecca Holly and I journey each month through the astrological world, and we draw in all our wisdom and knowledge. Becky's a herbalist, witch, naturopath, and with my background with counselling and psychology and both esoteric magic, we weave it all in to have an epic podcast. And you can find more about that on the Sentient Sky podcast. Thinking becoming a member, you get extra benefits of us and all our wisdom that we get to share in those higher tier of memberships. And if you are liking what you're hearing here and you are getting something out of it, we would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. Put a thumbs up, like it, share it, get the word out. This is how we all move through this together. So without further ado, let's look at the astrology. Thank you for listening to all that. So this is very important, these times, as we know, and we can all feel it. But this in particular, um, at the end of December, post that Jupiter and Saturn square, in the lead up to this full moon, actually today, we have Chiron stationing direct. Now, Chiron has been in retrograde since I've got it here, the 26th of July earlier this year, 2024. It is, and it's stationed retrograde at 23 degrees and 32 minutes in Aries. And now it is stationed direct, as you can see here. Let me get my little pen out. Ooh, there we go. Okay, so Chiron here in Aries, here, stationing direct at 19 degrees exact. Aries, Chiron is the wounded healer. It's the centaur. And Chiron's really interesting. So before I talk about this full moon, this new moon, Chiron's very much a part of this new moon. And I feel especially now that Pluto has moved out of Capricorn, there might be some things coming up about who we are now. And Aries being the initiator, the leader, identity. And Chiron in Aries is all about who am I? Who am I leading off the charge? Who am I now that I've been born? What happens next? And Chiron, who travels, has a really interesting orbit that travels around from Uranus, and it gets closer to Saturn and around the Earth. It's like an egg shape. It's a really interesting orbit. It's like it's a mythical creature, the Chiron, the centaur, the wounded healer. And it has this thing about not having time and space. And if you think about our woundings and our stories that we hold, that we hold from our childhood and our stories from our ancestors, talking about the bones in Capricorn, are they true now? Like, and how things over time and space get morphed and shifted. And, it just really reminds me of that loyal soldier story of the World War II soldiers in Japan who, even though World War II was over, their commander was killed, and they never believed anybody that the war was over, so they were still fighting. And there's a part of that within us as well, that believes something that may or may not have happened, but we carry a story around it. And this Chiron stationing direct, I feel that it has something really to do with what was that Pluto in Capricorn? What was that that stories that may have happened between 2008 to 2000 and to now? What part of that was true and what wasn't? And can we let it go now? Who are we now after that? Because I know, and from personal experiences, that the person who you are now is so different to the person who you were back in 2008. So much has changed. And so that question is, who are we now if we step out of the old woundings, if we let go, and especially thinking of this dark moon in Capricorn, letting go of the old stories so we can create a new identity. And this is that Chiron stationing direct now, moving forward now. Who are we now? The healed version of ourselves, not the wounded stories, but the healed version of ourselves. And it's really interesting. When Chiron is in Aries, the orbit of Chiron is closest to Uranus. And Uranus is all about freedom and breaking free and breaking through identity. And, there's so much that's happened around this 19 degrees Aries. We had that epic, new moon eclipse back in April around this 19-20 degree mark of Aries. We had the North Node has journeyed through there as well, like really calling us to step into our future selves. Who are we now? when we unshackle the pains and the hurts of the past? Who are we now when we look forward and really start to carve out a new identity for ourselves? So this is what we are carrying into this dark moon, this breaking free of the old stories that have held us back, that have held us through the wounding, and creating new ones, especially with the North Node having done work. And this is not a new thing. We've been journeying with this Chiron. This is several times Chiron has crossed the 19-degree mark, and especially with that new moon eclipse here, we've been working on this for quite some time. So at this dark moon, it's an invitation to really let go of the old version of yourself. And being Capricorn too, Capricorn is, as I mentioned before, it's about the bones. Capricorn is a collective sign, it's a transpersonal sign. So it's not just for you, it's for the whole collective, it's for the ancestors. Go forward and back, realizing that you are an ancestor, and what legacy do you want to leave behind for the grandchildren coming through? How do you want to proceed to the future? Aries, something new, stepping into new identity, really fully, without carrying the heavy burden of Saturnian baggage on your shoulders. Is that really how you want to go into the new paradigm, the new version of you? And then sit with this. Who do you want to now? Who are you now? Knowing what you know after Pluto's journey through Capricorn at this new moon, who are you now? And who are you ready to step into it? And this forward movement to go through it. And it's really interesting why, this Chiron is really speaking to us at this new moon as well. Just after the actual new moon, we'll get to that in a minute. But this Mercury, who has been on a journey, Mercury and Sagittarius, it's still just in its shadow zone. It's gone retrograde, and it's at the end of November, and now it's coming back. This is the third time it's crossed this mark, this third time, final time at this point in the wheel that it is making a trine. There's 120 degrees between this Mercury and this Chiron. This is a very harmonious degree. This Mercury, who's been on a journey, who's been through an underworld experience, who's had a conversation with the center of our universe, of the sun. And it's bounced back and forth through different personal planets and outer planets as well during its journey in Sagittarius. But now here at this new moon, it's the first major aspect that happens just after the new moon, is this Mercury on the way up, on its ascension. Remember that Mercury is also the messenger to the underworld. It takes souls down to the underworld, to Hades realms, and brings them back. This is a Mercury stepping into its power, full of wisdom, full of galactic remembering. Remember that Sagittarius is the archer that shoots out to the cosmos, who is looking from above, from this galactic perspective, and just going, wow, look at this information. And do we take each other so seriously out here? It's away from the density of the earth, and having this very harmonious conversation with Chiron to say, well, are we ready to go? Can we step out into this new version of ourselves from this perspective? And then really calling in what it is again, from the messenger of the stars, from Mercury. What is Mercury telling you? The communication, how to proceed into this new identity that is now forming very solidly. And, with the astrology coming up in 2025, which is friggin' epic. Like, I haven't seen astrology like this from as long as I've been studying astrology. And what I'm hearing too, there's really been no other astrology like it. So this year, this 2025, it's going to be a big year of change. A lot of outer planets, all the outer planets are moving signs. Like that doesn't happen usually. Like this is a very dynamic, changing, fast-paced, especially when Uranus moves into Gemini, and we've got Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries. So this really feels like in this movement of what is and who are you now. I keep coming back to that because of this Aries theme, is this initiation, this start of something. We can't take the old with us. And I think at this new moon, this dark moon is really calling to us. Okay, let's talk about this new moon. Capricorn New Moon happening here, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at 9:26 a.m. on the 31st of December, happening at 9 degrees and 43 minutes. As I said, this is the first new moon since Pluto has moved out of Capricorn. So this is very interesting new moon, this full of wisdom and new insights. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. It's Saturn, the Lord of Time. Saturn, the elder, who is going, okay, now what wisdom that we have lived through most of this cycle that we can now apply to the future versions of ourselves. I really feel the ancestors in here, and there's a thing about legacy as well. What legacy are you leaving for the grandchildren to come? When you look at the ancestors, when you think of your great grandchildren, what stories are they going to be telling about you? Capricorn is where we take that wisdom of the Sagittarius Archer from the cosmos, and we come back down and we say, right, now that I know this, now that I know this, towards the end of the cycle, knowing that, Capricorn is towards the end of the whole zodiac. It is coming into eldership, which is really interesting in the Southern Hemisphere because we've just reached the peak of summer solstice. So there's a high peak, but we're also now on the harvest. So this is the beginning of the harvest wisdom for us. I can just hear my children. Interesting, right? For the children, what stories will the children tell you? And coming back with this wisdom of saying, well, what do we know now? How are we going to do things differently? What things are we calling in for the future? What mark, knowing that our bones will return to the earth. What is it about that cardinal earth energy that we want to bring forward into future generations? Cardinal earth. And this representation of Capricorn as being the sea goat as well, this emerging out from this sea-like cosmos and coming down and putting feet on the earth for the first time, this new vision, this new insight of the harvest time to say, what do we know now? What can we do now? What seeds do we need to plant for the future generations? Holidays. Just a sec, my children are calling me again. Back. One of the things I was thinking of about Capricorn too is that if you know Capricorn people who have a lot of Capricorn in their charts or Capricorn rising, they're hard workers. They work hard, they are focused, they know what needs to be done, and they just get in there and do it. It's really interesting of that, that galactic cosmic view of Sagittarius is the start of that transpersonal collective sign, and then going, yep, okay, from out here, I can see what needs to be done, and let's get to it. Let's start doing the work. And that is a part of that Capricorn sea goat, is like that emerging out from the cosmos and knowing what needs to happen next. And I think now that Pluto is out of Capricorn, and with this Chiron stationing direct and now looking at, it's like, well, what needs to be done now? What work do I need to do to bring in a legacy and in the new stories of who you are now for the collective seedings for generations to come? It's a really important turning point, I think. And as I said before, just like any new moon prayers and thinking of this new moon and new moon prayers is whatever starts at the beginning of the cycle sets a tone for the rest of the cycle. It's an infamous quote from Jane Hudwick Collins, but this journey that we are now embarking on, it's already started, but we're at the very, very beginning. We're at the end and the beginning. We're in the space of in between. And especially, as I said earlier, with this Saturn going to moving into Aries next, 2025. Neptune will be also, the nodes are going to change place, in this cycle, in this lunar cycle, which is epic. So again, coming back to that, who are you now, that identity of Aries with that, this is the beginning of a lot of things that are going to be unfolding over, especially over the next 5 or 6 months. Uranus will be moving into Gemini in August. Jupiter will be moving into Cancer mid-year. It's a very, very powerful time. This time next year, at the next Capricorn New Moon, who do you want to be? What do you want to have in your life? What stories, that your children will, or grandchildren will be telling about you of these times. These are extraordinary, exceptional times, and we have chosen this time to journey through this, and it's going to have repercussions for generations to come. I think, what is it, back in maybe the June Sentient Sky podcast, we talked about Neptune's journey. Neptune's journey is at the start. It's about to move into the first sign of the zodiac, setting a new 160-year cycle. You think about that, 160 years. That's a long time to be at the very beginning of. So what is it that you want to leave your legacy? That's all I can feel like at this Capricorn New Moon, is the legacy now, knowing that we know now, after Pluto has dug up all the things, how do you want to proceed from here? And especially in the Southern Hemisphere, as we move into that harvest period of collecting the harvest and that wisdom that comes from it. In the Northern Hemisphere, this is the start of a whole 12-month cycle through the Earth cycle, winter solstice. This is the beginning of the solar cycle that will journey right through and peak, July, when we are here in the Southern Hemisphere having our winter solstice, our beginnings. And so it's interesting. I'm just thinking of the Vesica Pisces, where the two circles, and we're at the place in between, and when I do this, it really feels like the yoni, the womb space, both in the winter, both in the Northern Hemisphere, in that winter solstice period of being in the womb and, internal, in that cardinal space. But here in the southern hemisphere, this is summer solstice. This is the peak. This is the time of the mother and the father. And so I really see is that yoni, that sort of Vesican Pisces moment in the middle of the void of birthing something new as the parent, as the elder, as the wise informant that now is going to go forth and do something different. So that circle of in between, and I really feel like that's a Capricorny thing too, of the sea goat, is in between of the cosmic realm, but also here to do the work on the earth realm. It's that okay, feet on the ground, let's go. It's time to plant new seeds for the future generations. Following up after this this new moon, there's a lot of, it's a very dynamic month, this cycle, and I'll speak more at the Cancer full moon. But what we've got going on here, there's lots of shifting and changing. So after this new moon, as I mentioned, we have the Mercury trine Chiron the following day, a few hours afterwards, actually. Mercury also at the same time will be sextiling Black Moon Lilith here. Black Moon Lilith is the, that fierce feminine who will not lay beneath anything, that calls for equality, and especially in Libra, it wants equilibrium of everybody and everybody to have the same access, the same rights as everybody. There is in Libra, in Lilith, there is no top down, everybody is equal, and we stand here and we will say something if it's not. Libra is really interesting. Libra, the shadow side of Libra is like that people pleasing and wanting to be loved and stuff like that. But Black Moon Lilith here, she's going to say something. This is not okay. We need to stand up and say, this is not okay anymore. We cannot do this. And as I'm saying this, what's coming into my vision is what's happening in the Middle East. This is not okay. Is this the legacy that we want to leave our grandchildren, to say that we could not, come together in peace? Now, what the actual fuck? Like, seriously, it just, yeah. So that's a Lilith thing. I can feel Lilith coming in, and she's like, she's not happy, especially, but there's a sextile. This is the beginning of speaking truths. Also, Sagittarius is the truth seeker. She, she, no genders, but this Sagittarius is, it can, I said it again, can see this wider perspective. And what has Black Moon Lilith in Libra got to say that's new seedings, because sextile is 60 degrees, it's something beginning. What now? What do we need to say and do now from this cosmic perspective? What messages does Mercury have to offer with talking to Black Moon Lilith here in Libra? So that is happening at the same time as Mercury is talking to Chiron in Aries. It's like, well, what do we do now? Who are we now? Are we going to put up with this bullshit? Are we going to step forward and stand in our wisdom that we've gathered through the cycle and looking forward into the future, Capricorn, of something that's beyond us, and say, well, who do we want to be now? What are our grandchildren going to say? It's like, well, what did you do a part of this problem? Did you come into war or peace? And that starts with us. It starts it's an inner job. It's an inner world, because when we do it for the inner job, our outside world will reflect that. So if there's still war in our world, what's happening within the war within ourselves? What upheaval is happening within ourselves? And this is the part of the Invoking Inanna journey, and this is what we look at. We go down and we look at it. We look at the shadow side. We make friends with all our bits and pieces that is being reflected back from the outside world that doesn't feel good to us. And we look at that kind of stuff. On the 2nd here, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, Mars trine the node. So this is really interesting. So this comes after the new moon. So straight after the moon, it's very dynamic. We have Mars here who is doing retrograde work. Like, it will move back into Cancer in a few weeks' time, but it's having a conversation with Pluto, and you're probably already feeling this. This is the second time Mars and Pluto are having a conversation, but they're now different signs. Mars retrograde in Leo, so very fiery, fixed fire, having a conversation with Pluto that's just come into, and it's just really starting to settle in now into Aquarius at 1 degree Aquarius, like 101. So fixed air. So it feels like this, and oppositions, like they're push pull, and it's like this, who's going to snap first? There's a pulling and a pushing, and a pushing that way and a pulling that way. Pluto, the lord of the underworld, who's just finding out what it looks like in Aquarius. Aquarius is, it's the freedom maker. It's the thinking outside of the box. It's the scientist. It's the wanting to know more. How do we move through consciousness? Aries, these two waves are like electricity. It's very sort of, even for a fixed, it can be fixed thinking as well. But with Pluto here, it's digging up all this that sits underneath, things that we need to see to move in to bring a healed version of Aquarius into our lives. And wherever this is falling in your chart, there's a push-pull, and then you got Aries, Mars in retrograde, who is the ruler of Aries, which is really interesting. um just looking at, Aries, Mars wants to move its action, but it's in retrograde, so it's like moving back into itself, which is not a comfortable thing for Mars. Look at this arrow, a glyph. It wants to move, it wants to get going, it's action, and it can get frustrated, and if Mars is frustrated, it can stir up if it has to sit with itself, especially in the fiery Leo, this fire on fire, that can bring a lot of frustration and a lot of anger to the surface. Thinking of also this Pluto, which is digging up the surface, what lays underneath already. So this post new moon can be, it feels, especially with that Lilith and that Mercury and Mars and Pluto, it's like things could be said that you might not want to say, or it can go from 0 to 20 really quickly. So just be aware of that. And where can you find your peace? Where can you find, yeah, that's coming up in me, but how do I move it in a way that's not going to harm? How can I move it in a way that is peaceful? In, how do I want to see in the world? And that could be just going out to a forest and just yelling and screaming. It could be writing a letter that you'll never send, but it's moving the contents out of you as opposed to having it stuck. And we will come back to this. There will be another Pluto and Mars opposition coming up. I think it's sort of April. It's April, May. I can't remember the dates, but it's after April. So just feeling that energy and knowing that we will be coming back to this. So this is a piece of the information. It's a piece of the moment that we are information gathering. We also have Venus moving into Pisces. Now this could be the balm. This happens on the 3rd at 2:24 p.m. on the 3rd, January the 3rd. And this is nice. I love Venus in Pisces. Like, she is so beautiful for here, but she's also here. She's coming into where Saturn's been journeying too. So it feels like a dampening a bit of what would we usually, this Venus in Pisces, floaty, lovely movement of, mutable dreaming of the air and water element. And, Venus is dreamy anyway, but to come into Pisces, it is dreamy. But with Saturn here, it could be like what's showing up that's holding you back from your dreams. So this could be a really interesting energy to see the snuffling out of Saturn. And given that this moon cycle started with a Saturn ruled sign. And also, while this is all happening, the moon will be moving over Pluto and then coming and joining, Venus, as it moves into Pisces here. So we're going to have the moon, Venus in Pisces with Saturn and Neptune coming up. And this feels like a really interesting time, because the next time we will sort of be looking at Venus, like Venus is going to have a big journey in the next few months, because it'll be stationing retrograde in Aries again. Aries, pay attention to the Aries area of your chart, because already it's probably very loud, but it's going to get louder because as Saturn and Neptune, the nodes change position, as I said, later this month. But we also have a Venus retrograde coming up in March, as well as an eclipse in this area. But we're also going to have Mercury and the Sun joining this party. So from now on, Aries and that Pisces area is going to be a big area that's going to be activated in your chart. So know where, I think even like, look, just know where what's happening in Leo for you and Cancer. Know what's happening in Capricorn at this point in time, because this is setting the tone. But then shift your focus to the Pisces and Aries area of your chart, because that's going to be highlighted. So there's a story unfolding here that we already know. But to look at this Venus moving into Pisces is like, okay, how do I hold myself back from my dreamscape? How do I hold myself back from reaching this Venusian beauty that is available here to me? And Saturn, if we make friends with Saturn, has a lot of wisdom to share. It is the elder after all, and especially in Pisces, like it's gone through the whole zodiac under the ruler of this lunar cycle. Like it's a very powerful ally, I think, Saturn, if we choose to listen to what Saturn's stories are, what is holding us back, what feels compressed, what are the barriers. And when we can work with that, Saturn can open up so much as we step into eldership with deep wisdom and knowledge. And I think this insight to how to be moving forward from here, again, coming back to that eldership and that wisdom that comes from this. Yeah. There's a lot happening. Oh, yeah, and Mars, talking about Mars. This is a very dynamic week. Mars will also move into Cancer towards on the 6th as well. So much happening. I think just come back to focusing on the seeds that you are planting for the next generations, for the next version of yourself to come through at this new moon. Make your new moon prayers around what has Pluto and Capricorn shown me, and where do we go from now? Who am I now after that has happened in the Capricorn areas of your chart? I hope this wasn't too disruptive with all the stops and starts. A single mum of 4 kids at home on holidays, but bless them. And this is what it's ultimately about, is them, isn't it? So leaving a good life for them so they can grow up in a thriving world. That is my wish at this new moon. Sending you so much love for this Capricorn new moon. Go gentle with yourself. Go gentle with your bodies. We're in big times. Rest when you're feeling the call to rest. Nourish yourself as best you can. Feed on the earth with Capricorn, thinking of planting new seeds of what you want to see and who are you now, and just keep dreaming the good dreams, especially with that Neptune in Pisces at this change that is revolutionary. We are under revolutionary change. And what do you want to see? Like, how do you want to move through the world? Do you want to move through the world still attached to heavy baggage from all the stuff that's happened in your lifetime and your ancestors? Or do you want to create something new? The energy is so right to create something new, and doing it as a collective, seeing this collective energy that things are moving forward. Going back to the Hopi prophecy, are you swimming into the middle of the river, going with the flow and seeing who's there? Or are you clinging to the edge in fear from the past and feeling anxious about what's about to unfold? Or are you going to be the creator of it with those in the middle with you? With so much love, happy Capricorn new moon. And if you like this, if you got something out of this, I'd love to hear what's arising for you in the comments. Share it, like it, come to the Temple of Nuit Patreon, become a member, and join our awesome we have a beautiful new moon lunar prayer group that we connect through. That's through a membership of the highest tier membership of the Temple of Nuit. We would love to see you there. We'd love to have you join us. It is freaking awesome. And a shout out to all our members of the Temple of Nuit. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me here. And journey well through these big times. I will probably see you at the Cancer full moon in the middle of the month. Take care out there with so much love, and know that you're not alone in this. We are all here together. Much love. Take care.